Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Brabber, and alongside me is Logan Camden. And because it is officially the most wonderful time of the college basketball season, March Madness is at the top of everybody's minds, we are going to do an NBA draft episode today. So we're going to get to talk about all of the best college basketball players from an NBA perspective. And Logan, what's really fun about this year is a lot of those guys are on really, really good teams. A lot of those guys are still alive in the tournament, like essentially every single player who we could be talking about today, pretty much their team was at least in the tournament. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get in to our top 10 prospects though, how's your March Madness bracket going, Logan? Has it been good to you? Has it been bad to you?
I'm gonna keep
lost. That sucks.
I keep it a buck. I ain't even fill one out, man.
Wow.
I wasn't informed enough to even fill one out.
Informed enough? What are you talking about? My girlfriend picked one next to me. She had like penned to the Final Four. People just go based off vibes. People go based off mascots. They go off of if the team is a particularly good-looking player.
I would have just taken UVA to win it all because I'm biased.
Yeah, that's fair.
Shout out Virginia.
Dude, you gotta have a little whimsy. You gotta fill one out. Nobody knows anything, really. The correlation between knowledge and performance in the bracket
might be the most
minimal.
Insightful thing you've ever said on this show, Carson. No, we don't really know anything, man.
Thanks,
That's
man.
the true test of intelligence, knowing that you don't know anything.
Sure. Well, that being said, I know everything because I have a 95th percentile bracket. So that's the whole reason I brought this up, just so I could flex. Yeah. Now, the problem is a lot of that is by going chalk. And then my one big sort of gamble I took is I had Vandy to the Final Four because I love Tyler Tanner. And I was like, I think Florida is vulnerable. And Florida did go out. But alas, Vandy went down in heartbreaking fashion to Nebraska, who are now going to take part in the whitest game in basketball history. The first time in Iowa program history where they're going to be outnumbered in terms of white guys. It's a historic moment. And it's going to be weird, man. I don't like Nebraska. Can I tell you that? Not the state. I've got no problem with the state. The team, I mean, they got a couple guys out there where I feel like I'm watching Bill Lambier, but there's multiple of them out there at the same time. So, I don't know.
I get it, man. I mean, I don't like white people.
Yeah, and you don't like white people, so your perspective on that is pretty obvious. You're going to be rooting against both teams pretty adamantly in that game, I would imagine. Well, we are going to be talking about our top 10 prospects today, Logan. Now, we're still limiting it to 10 because we are not as deep in the draft weeds as we will be by the end of draft season. So this is a good number to settle on for now. And of course, we will just get deeper in as we get deeper into the process. Let's start from the bottom here, though, Logan. I don't really want to do honorable mentions for this. I think maybe we can just shout out some guys at the end who we really like, who we just left off. Why don't you just start with whoever's in your 10 spot?
Yeah, before we get into it, I think that's a good caveat to add. As the playoffs kick in, that's normally when I really dial into, full big draft boards and stuff like that. So this is all subject to change. This is my top 10 as of right now. I'm sure within a week, a month, a couple of months, this will all be a little bit more jumbled, but we will also have a little bit more clarity.
Yeah, not a final product here is the important thing to reiterate.
Of course. In my 10 spot, this guy I have bumped down a little bit because of some of my concerns about his offensive game. I have Karim Lopez here from Mexico, and he just reportedly declared for the draft today. He is a forward that plays in New Zealand. He's just 18 years old, 6'9", 220 pounds with a reported and estimated 7'1" wingspan. My favorite thing about Karim is just the physicality that this guy plays with. He is one tough son of a bitch. He is not afraid to bang on the block, and I love, with this physicality and strength, his impact floor and versatility. I see a guy that is going to rebound at a really high level. He's going to give me a ton of effort and energy. I think he's decently versatile, and he's got good defensive instincts. I am a little bit concerned with him guarding quicker guards and defending in space. That's one of my bigger defensive concerns, and his defensive discipline as well. I think we've seen in New Zealand, he is a little bit more foul prone, and I think that's something that he's going to have to work on. But I think you do see some switchability on bigger wings, on actual bigs as well. But I really like how well-rounded he is and how well he finishes. I think that is the best aspect of his scoring arsenal at this stage. He's got a really impressive gather bag, footwork on the inside, and patience. He's really good at finishing through contact. And I do want to emphasize this aspect of his scoring game. this is not a guy that you are going to put the ball in his hands and he is going to initiate offense. He is much more of a connective kind of well-rounded wing, more so than he is a guy that you're going to actually get a ton of scoring punch and offense out of right now. I would say that is probably the biggest concern of mine about him as a prospect. He's very raw in terms of on-ball scoring upside. Now, I think he's got impressive skills for his size, but he has got a long way to go there in terms of his shot. He's just a 31% catch and shooter on threes. And that's just where I think you're going to have to see him really develop. But I really like him in terms of his well-rounded impact. But he's 76% as a cutter. He's 62% scoring out of transition. That's where most of this guy's scoring comes from. And I want to emphasize this because there's a lot of guys even below him in this late lottery. I definitely like their scoring impact from day one right now. But he is just 18 years old. I think there's a lot of room to grow there. And like I said, the biggest thing is I like his impact floor with his skill, his size, his strength, and his physicality. But he's very raw in that way. So a lot of this is an upside bet. I think that he's going to get better. But I want to emphasize that this is not a star offensive kind of guy. This is much more of an impact floor versatility kind of argument. But I have bumped him a little bit lower. Everybody else basically in this top 10, I think they've got a more winning skill set, or I just like their offensive game more. I think out of everybody I'm going to talk about today in the top 10, I think he has got the rawest offensive game and scoring skill set out of anybody that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I have significant enough questions about Lopez to not have him in my top 10, and it's a lot of the stuff that you touched on. Concerns about the offensive game overall, but particularly the really streaky shooting, and had a couple of real cold stretches in that regard. And then defensively, does he have that real quick twitch sort of fluid change in direction guarding the perimeter? I just don't really feel confident in him enough in that sort of do-it-all wing archetype that you're talking about to have him on this list. But also, it's interesting because I have a guy in my 10 spot who is different, bigger player, but his sales pitch, it really is versatility and sort of well-rounded impact. He's a much older, much more polished player, and I think I just feel more confident in that.
I think I know exactly who you're talking about, and I think that guy's in my 9 spot.
See, I think you know who I'm talking about, and I think we're going to have him in the 9 spot together. You think I'm talking about Yaxel, don't you?
I do.
I'm not. I'm talking about Thomas Haugh, who I really like. And I think you're a little higher on Lopez than the consensus. Although what's interesting with him is he is pretty widely regarded as the top international prospect in this class. And we're talking about you have him in the 10 spot. I don't have him in my top 10 at all. Just a real contrast there to recent years where so many of these classes have been dominated by international talent. Of course, it's taking over the league, right? So many of the very best players on the planet are from outside the U.S. This year is a real reversal of that, which is part of why this college basketball season has been so great. It's the most I've watched in a long time, even though I'm not a huge college basketball fan, just because we're actually getting to see all of the top future NBA talent playing in college basketball for these top programs. That's really, really fun. So shout out to Lopez for being sort of an exception to that rule this year. But I do have a college national champion here. I have a guy who was the best player on a 1 seed this year, and that is Haugh, who is a 6'9" junior forward out of Florida. He's old. He is going to be 22.9 years old on draft day, but I do have real confidence in his game translating and him being an impactful player at the next level. And I had sort of a ideological crossroads here between the guys that I was considering for this spot other than Haugh and him. I was considering a couple of highly skilled guards, like guys who are going to bring you a lot of flash and clear perimeter creation ability. But then you just wonder, is there a line that they have to cross that is just too high for me to be confident in them being impactful NBA players when you look at how many rosters are chock full of guard talent and how few spots there really are for guys to contribute in that sort of feature role. Are you good enough to be a flat-out offensive star? Because if you're not that, as we've talked about, it can be hard for you to find a role if you're going to be attacked defensively, if you aren't quite efficient enough offensively, if you have some certain limitation, if you're overly reliant on screens, so really good switching defenses or physical defenses can give you a lot of trouble. Those were sort of the holdups with the guys who I was considering and who wind up in my 11 and 12 spots. And then I think about Haugh, and I'm like, he's just such a good, well-rounded basketball player. This year, averaged 17, 6, and 2 on 59% true shooting with about a steal and a block a game. I really like the feel offensively. I think he is somebody who can fit into basically any offense in the NBA because there is a combination of shoot, pass, the ability to put the ball on the floor, but specifically the play finishing off ball that you get out of this guy, where he's one of the very best transition scorers in college basketball, really good athlete, runs the floor super hard. He is somebody who has really good instincts as a cutter and can be a vertical threat in that way, somebody that you can find with lobs and whatnot. He's a good offensive rebounder, attacks the offensive glass aggressively, and somebody who is really aggressive and physical around the basket. And so you combine that with the vertical athleticism and the size, and this is a guy who generates a ton of free throws, about 6 a game this past year. Bouncy, good finish around the basket, good touch on like little floaters and runners to not directly at the rim. And then I do think he's somebody who has shown an ability to be a connective passer for you, make an extra pass, somebody who I think could be used more as a roll man at the next level. Not that he has great size for being a roller, but he does have the vertical spacing ability. He does have the ability, I think, to shoot threes off the pop, and he does have clear potential as a short roll passer. So when I was thinking about how many different roles I can slot him into, especially off ball, I think this is a guy who is a better shooter than some of the numbers would indicate. He winds up being just about 32.5% from deep this year, but the three-point volume is legitimate, and he's made huge strides as a shooter overall. The free throw numbers are really good. He shoots about 78% from the line at high volume, and I just think overall, the shot is smooth. The touch is really good. I'm high on him being a plus shooter at the next level. So there's so many things that tie together his offensive game that I feel comfortable translating in a number of different spots in the NBA. And then defensively, super high energy. I mean, that's part of what I love about this guy. And this is sort of a theme of this episode. If you've got a combination of physicality, size, athleticism, feel, shooting skill, and effort and instincts, like you just check so many boxes where maybe you don't have the highest ceiling, but the floor of impact that you're going to provide, like I love those kind of guys. And so I'm confident in him in that regard. He is, again, a good vertical athlete, so a good help defender around the basket. He has good help instincts, really good post defender. Like that's almost a niche skill set in today's NBA because you just don't see that many outright post-ups where a big is posting up another big. It's mostly like mismatch attacking when you do see guys going at it out of the post. But in those spots, I think Haugh is a real competitor. I think he does a good job of fighting for leverage. He's physical in that context too. And like the motor just doesn't stop with this guy, which I really do like. Now, I think he's going to be a plus defender because of that versatility and the positive traits that he brings you. Good length too at really good size. I will say not a true switch defender onto quicker players. I think a lack of lateral agility can be problematic for him in that way. So it's not like he's a total jack of all trades defensively, and then not going to be like an upper echelon rim protector for you, right? This is a secondary rim protector sort of helping big forward for you. So you see good defender, not going to be elite on that side of the ball. And then offensively, similarly, like the ceiling is not that high. He is somebody who is good at everything, not necessarily great at anything. He's a capable ball handler. He has had to take on a more significant load there as just the feature guy for Florida this year, but still not an advanced ball handler, not somebody who's going to really break you down off the bounce a lot. And so that limits his creation. He's just not really a creator at the next level. He's also a very right-hand dominant driver, like drives right way more than he drives left, and is way more effective driving right than when he drives left. So I worry a little bit about defenses sort of sitting on that right hand at the next level. But again, I just look at the archetype, I look at the skill set, and there's just not enough room for the offensively gifted but flawed, defensively problematic guards at the next level. And I don't want to make it out to sound like the guys who I was considering at 11 and 12 are like super small guards who are going to be disasters defensively, because I don't think that's the case. But nevertheless, unless you are an elite offensive player, the level of impact that I'm going to get from a guy who plays like Haugh, I'm just more confident. And there is always so much room for these big, versatile forwards. And so I understand the age. I understand the ceiling. I just think he's such a good basketball player. I'm so confident in. And I'm betting on those kind of guys, like the fellow we're about to talk about, who's just an even better version in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I have him in my top 16 to 15 guys, like right in this lottery range. I think he's going to be a good NBA player. Like, I completely agree. I think his floor is so high, and I did, like you, some of these offensively slanted guards that I worry about defensively at the next level, I left them just off of my list. But
it's especially hard in this class because, like, there's so many good guards that there's just no way all these guys are going to go top 10, which isn't what we're doing here. We're not doing a mock, we're doing a big board. But that's also reflective of the reality in the NBA. Like, there's so many of these really good offensive guards. How many spots are there? How many of them are on the right side of the line when it comes to overall star impact? It's been the theme of the last couple seasons, but I think the draft is going to have to start to reflect that. You can't overdraft those guys.
Completely agree. Yeah, I like Haugh a lot. I mean, the rebounding to me is awesome, offensively and defensively. The guy's going to make an impact. He is just relentless. Like, you're talking about him running the floor. If you look at any clip, I mean, that's that's a lot of the appeal, man.
He's everywhere.
Just busting his ass up and down the floor, and it is cliche, and I'm going to use this term again for the next guy that we talk about, but I do think he's a winner. And there's always going to be a spot for guys that have this kind of effort, have this kind of energy, have this kind of IQ to go along with the size and athleticism that he possesses. So I think he's a really good shout.
I think the shot is really going to be the swing factor for him justifying being in the top 10. I think he's going to have to be like a 36, 37% three-point shooter at volume at the next level. But again, the volume is already there. I think the touch is there. I think the mechanics are there. But you combine that with the play finishing around the basket and the feel and the levels of activity, like, it just feels like a very sure thing to be a good basketball player.
Well said. Yeah, ultimately the upside is why I didn't have him in my top 10. I do think guys like Lopez and some of these younger guys that are 3-4 years younger have a little bit more upside. But when you're talking about dependable, rock-solid kind of prospects in this class, that is where I would put Haugh. I mean, the same can be said for this next guy. I am all about Yaxel Lendebourg, man.
Me too.
I am blown away every time I watch this guy play. And when I first started watching tape on Lendeborg, for reference, he's a forward out of Michigan, 23 years old. He is a veteran in the college basketball landscape. 6'9", 230 pounds this year with Michigan. Gave them 14, 7, and 3 on 63.5% true shooting with 2.6 stocks per game and just 1.1 turnovers per game. When I initially was watching Lendeborg, I was like, what does this guy do that's special, that really blows me away? And I keep watching, and I'm like, what is this special trait that's going to put him up there? And I could never really come away with anything where I was like, wow, this guy baffles me. But every time I watch him play, he is either in the right spot, he is making a good decision. He's just super smart, and he's got such a high IQ. If it's being in the right spot defensively to make a play, if it is connecting and feeding somebody the ball offensively, he just feels like a connector in a winning basketball player, and that's why I'm so high on him. He may be older, but I just expect him to have such a high impact floor in winning skill set. If it's versatility defensively, I think this is a guy that can scale up and not only defend wings, but defend bigs. This season, this is a baffling number. He held opponents to a defensive field goal percentage of 30.4% as the low man at the rim. Granted, that's not an incredibly big sample size, but it is an outstanding number. So I think he can scale up and scale down and defend guys. He's a really good rebounder. Like Haugh, he is just an absolute hustler, always busting his ass, moving up and down the court. And then one of my other favorite things about him is his physicality and strength, which I think is going to translate in a big way, especially finishing. He shot 69% at the rim on all attempts. He shot 73% in transition. He averaged nearly 2 offensive rebounds per game, and he shot 65% on putbacks. Like, again, I'm just building out a guy with such a high floor game to game. And then with that, I think the big swing skill trait about this guy is definitely going to be the shooting. But I'm encouraged. You know, he's a 82% shooter at the line. He's 34% overall from deep. But on unguarded catch-and-shoot threes, he shot 41%. That number goes down to 31% when you're talking about guarded catch-and-shoot threes. So it's definitely going to be a swing trait. But when I look at Lendeborg, it's like, okay, I'm getting a guy who's pretty athletic, who's got a really good strength and frame profile, good rebounder, switchable defender, could defend on the interior. I'm going to get a lot of value in all these different areas, and then my one swing trait is the shot. And I believe in it enough to where I think he could be a 35% to 37% kind of shooter, and I think that's good enough to justify him getting burned. Like, I look at this guy as an immediate impact kind of winning guy that you can slot into a role from day one, and he's going to provide you value. So, you know, I think some of these other guys may blow you away in certain skills, individual skill sets. Lendeborg is really well-rounded, and like I said, I think he can slot in day one and can make an immediate winning impact.
I absolutely love Yaxel, just like you, man. And he is part of this interesting trend now that is sort of a new thing because we have these super seniors, if it's because guys had an extra COVID year, just like all of these transfers, guys coming from JUCOs and then playing multiple years, and they started a mid-major and then they go to a power program or whatever. Like, the guy's going to be almost 24 years old on draft night. And we've sort of had one of those guys every year in recent memory or close to it, where the pitch is sort of, you just know what you're getting. The floor is high. He's got experience, whatever. There's some trait, shooting, feel, physical readiness that you feel like you can drop that guy on an NBA team and he's just going to be pretty good right now. Interestingly, that hasn't necessarily worked out for a number of these guys. I'm talking about like the truly old dudes, like Dalton Connect, like Chris Duarte. Neat Clifford, the jury is very much still out on. He's the most recent, and I loved Neat Clifford as a prospect. But Duarte, Connect, obviously that did not work out well. However, I don't think you can just look at the age component there and say, oh, we should be out on 23, 24-year-olds, because I do think that Yaxel is like such a superior prospect, and where those guys, pretty much the sales pitch was like, they're really good shooters, they're pretty crafty scorers, that's what's going to translate. That's not nearly as compelling as Yaxel being good at so many different things on the basketball court that you think are going to translate seamlessly to the next level. Like, he almost feels like a guy who's a better NBA player than a college player. And I hesitate to say that about guys like him and Haugh, because these guys are like all-American level college players and the best players on number one seeds. But I do think when you talk about guys whose primary gift is not creation, but whose superpower is versatility, strength, feel, shooting, like, you are just as effective in a situation where you are asked to do less, if not more so. And I think that's what's coming for Yaxel at the next level, and that's what is so exciting about him. He's a ridiculously efficient, versatile, impactful basketball player. 15, 7, and 3 on 65% true shooting this year. And the pitch really is that multifaceted impact. He is massive. He is strong as hell. He is legitimately skilled. He is smart. Like, he can just fill a bunch of different roles for you. As you said, an excellent finisher around the basket. Really good touch. Plays with force around the basket. Also has a nice little runner game of his own that we've seen at times. He's a strong catch and shooter. I really do believe that. Like, 36% from deep, 4.5 attempts a game. The volume is there. I think the shooting indicators are there with the free throw touch. Like, I like the mechanics. I really do think he's going to be a good shooter at the next level. Absolute weapon in transition, downhill with a head of steam, also runs the floor hard. Honestly, like, as I'm going through it, him and Haugh do have a lot of similarities in terms of the pitch, but then Yaxel does bring another dimension of power. He brings, I would say, even more passing feel, even more ability as a creator, a shot that I'm even more confident in, more defensive switchability for sure. So just overall, and maybe there's a little tier break between 9 and 10, because I think that Yaxel is like clearly a better prospect than Haugh. And another thing that does set him apart is what we've seen from him as a creator on ball, he's been 96th percentile as a pick and roll creator, where you see the high field passing. He can hit lower degree of difficulty pull-up threes. Like if you're going to go under, he can knock down those shots, make you pay. And so I think that's just another interesting way in which he can be used offensively. Such a Swiss Army knife. And I'm just such a believer in strength translating. I think people really underrate strength, and sometimes they'll almost look at guys like Yaxel or Cam Boozer. I've heard this a lot, and they think like, oh, that guy's bullying around little college guys. That's not going to translate at the next level. And it's like, dude, if you're 6'9", 230, absolute freight train, like you're going to bully dudes in the NBA too, especially with how much teams switch. Like the mismatch attacking opportunities for Yaxel, I think, are going to be another important card in his offensive arsenal, on top of the fact that I can handle for you in spots. I can make really good decisions as a passer. I can knock down shots off the catch. I'm going to be great in transition. And then I'm also going to be a plus switchable defender who gives you over a steal and over a block a game. The only knock that I have on Yaxel is age and ceiling. And those two things are very much interrelated. Regardless, I just don't think Yaxel has the juice as a creator to become like a star at the next level, but a very good basketball player. I feel like that's almost a sure thing. And I don't know if maybe I'm just not ageist enough, but like I do look at a lot of these guys who are experienced in college, and it's like, if you check all these different boxes, versatility is at such a premium in the NBA, feel, high IQ, like this stuff just translates. So like Cedric Coward, these are different players, but sort of similar in the sense that age was a concern with him. He was a guy who had come from a smaller program, obviously didn't have nearly the college basketball resume that Yaxel does because of what Yaxel's done at Michigan this year. But like, if you can check all those different boxes, I'm not going to get too caught up in your age, because I just feel like I know that what you do is going to translate. I know that you have a specifically valuable NBA skill set. And so I just can't help but love Yaxel. I get that this is high considering the age, but I'm like, look, what is the likelihood that LeBaron Philon or Mikal Brown or some of these guys who I considered actually become more impactful NBA players than Yaxel? They may be 3-4 years younger, but I don't know that that matters as much as we often think it does.
They're not going to magically sprout 7 more inches and pack on 50 more pounds.
100%.
That really does matter to me.
Well, and it goes even beyond that. It's just like positional archetype differences, like the ways in which you feel like, all right, am I going to be having to build my roster a certain way around those guys, having to fight this uphill battle with whatever, turnovers, efficiency, defensive issues? You never, ever have to worry about finding a role in which Yaxel is a positive contributor. And not just that, finding a number of different roles, all the different spots he can fill for you on both sides of the ball, especially offensively. So we are very much in agreement on loving him. Who is in your 8 spot, Logan?
In my 8 spot, this may seem low for this guy, and I really like him as a prospect. I want to contextualize that. I just know he's very high on some boards. I have Kingston Flemings here in my 8 spot, and I love his game. I think he is going to be such an impactful winning basketball player. I just don't think I see the upside that some people do with him as this sort of star. That being said, he does so many things at such a high level and has such a valuable guard skill set that, like, I think he is almost a sure thing to being, again, a winning impact player wherever he goes. Flemings is a guard from Houston. He's 6'4", he's 190 pounds, and he's just 19 years old, just turned 19. He is a freshman. And the first thing that I think pops off the page about Kingston is just his shooting touch. I mean, the guy has got such a good stroke. He's given you 16, 4, and 5 on 39% from deep, 60.5% true shooting. Really good shooting touch, really good speed and quickness on ball, some nice change in pace. The thing I said about his upside, though, really is about, I don't know if Flemings, I won't say I don't know. I'm not as confident in him being this sort of on-ball creator at the NBA level that you're going to put the ball in his hands every possession. He's going to create advantages. I really worry about him creating an isolation and creating separation and advantages on ball. I think there is a certain lack of high-end athleticism with Flemings that I'm not getting. I don't think he's super explosive. He's slight-framed. He doesn't have a ton of strength, and so some of those are my concerns. He is speedy. He is quick, but it's not, breaking down a defense kind of stuff. But I don't act like he's a zero on ball either. He is still super young in that regard. But again, a lot of this is about his connective traits. I think Flemings is very selfless. I think he is an elite decision maker. I really trust him with the ball in his hands. And I think he's a super high IQ guy as well, offensively and defensively. And I really think he does shine defensively too when we're talking about him defending guards. When I look at him at the next level, and again, these are the best of the best in this archetype, I see him in sort of this Cason Wallace, Derek White, Alex Caruso sort of mold where, and I want to be clear about something, those guys are stronger than him, and notably so, in a way where I would like to see Flemings pack on some weight and maybe become a little bit stronger. But I think he's got really good hands, he's got a really good defensive IQ, and he's really good in terms of positioning. And then with that, he is an extremely talented shooter on and off ball, to where I think it translates where he could be on ball in certain lineups or off ball alongside another point guard that's handling, where you can run him off screens, or he can get to his looks out of pick and roll. I just don't see, again, and I know that maybe the assist numbers would indicate something higher than this. I just don't see this sort of on-ball creation load that he could take on at the next level to where he's going to be a star guard. But as a 3-and-D card that can take on some ball handling responsibilities, I do see that. I just don't know if I see a lead kind of star guard with him. And then, of course, it is just the archetype. Like I'm saying, I think he's going to be a good defensive guard. There are just limitations that come with his size. I think he plays bigger than he is, and that's one of my favorite things about Flemings. Is like when I watch him, he's not like Phylon or like Brown the way you're talking. Even an Acuff, I worry about Acuff way more defensively than I think I worry about Flemings.
God,
right?
Yeah.
Like it's not even like those guys have similar size and profiles to Flemings, but I don't worry about him in that way. I want to be clear about that. Like he plays a lot larger than he is, but there are just some raw size things that he's not going to be able to overcome, right? Like, I think being switched onto the action against bigger wings, against bigs, that's going to be problematic. But again, I am confident in his decision-making, his shooting touch to carve out enough of an offensive role to where that doesn't matter as much. And I think he'll be able to guard point guards and shooting guards at the next level. So I'm sold. Like, I think he is a winner at the next level. I think he is going to be a really good NBA player. The only reason he isn't higher is I just don't think I see the kind of star upside with Flemings that maybe other people do.
That's interesting. I do think that I'm higher on Flemings on ball than you are. I have him just one spot higher at number 7, but I really do think he has an ability to carve up and threaten a defense. And I think there's a pretty damn intriguing combination of size, speed, and shot making and playmaking with this guy. I think the most distinct trait with him is the mid-range scoring. Like, this guy is one of the best mid-range prospects I've evaluated. He's over 46% on 2-point off the dribble jumpers at massive volume. He takes almost 5 of those a game. Like, that is a really unique tool to have in your arsenal with that level of comfort and volume, and he can get to it in so many different ways. Like, he just absolutely fries drop coverage with the mid-range pull-ups, but in terms of his isolation game, it just gives him a lot of counters and nuance as a scorer that is rare to see from a guy who's going to be 19 and a half years old on draft night. Now, we obviously love the mid-range game. It's such an important layer to have to your game. You also don't want to live exclusively off of the mid-range. And I think that is a valid concern to have about what the ceiling of Flemings as a lead offensive option is, because he's not a great rim finisher. And I think his slightness can be a factor there at times when it comes to just dealing with really good physical athletes around the basket. And overall, I worry a little bit about him separating and really getting to his spots as much versus those kind of super athletic physical teams. But 55% at the rim. And then the flip side of that, of course, is the 3-point volume, which is pretty low for Flemings at this point. He makes 39% of his threes. He's been an excellent catch and shoot guy on low volume, but just 3 attempts per game from deep overall hasn't really shown us as much as a pull-up three-point shooter, like very clearly has a strong preference for the mid-range. And I love the mid-range, but whenever you look at somebody and you're like, okay, you are a gifted shooter, you like the mid-range, can we strike a better balance where you're not taking way more middies than threes just because literally as a statistical fact, like the three-point shot is disproportionately valuable to the mid-range. But nevertheless, I'm so intrigued by that mid-range game because I think there's definitely potential for him to become a higher volume, very good three-point shooter. And then he also has the ability to get into the paint a ton, where even though he's not a great finisher at the basket, he is so quick and he's got good size that, like, when he does penetrate, he's a really good kick-out passer. And if he gets 2 feet in the paint, like, the court mapping is good. He can make some of those really nice jumping kick-out passes in traffic. He can navigate that. So I understand, like, the efficiency with him isn't going to sparkle and shine. He does keep turnovers low, which I really do like. And I do think he can get his own shot in a way that is not super common. He can create shot for his teammates in a way that is not super common. All the while, I do think he's a solid defensive talent. So I just feel confident enough in him being like a good player because I think the feel, the shooting off the catch, just like competitiveness defensively, all that stuff gives him a solid enough floor. And then I do think there's definitely a world where you're building an offense around Kingston Flemings, or at the very least, he's like a really good second creator for you. Like, I see a much higher offensive ceiling for him as a creator than the guy in my 8th spot, who honestly I view more like how you were sort of describing Flemings. Like, this is a guy who I can see wanting to be a Derek White 2.0, that sort of do-it-all, defensively minded, offensive, secondary, tertiary creator kind of guy. It seems like maybe you think you know who it is, and you probably do.
Who is it for you?
That's going to be Brayden Burries.
That's so funny. We have flipped exactly. The difference for me and why I prefer Burries is just the strength aspect. And I agree with you. I think there's a different level of, like, I'm worried about his handle a little bit at the next level in comparison to Flemings. I'm definitely more confident in him as a half-court creator. He is just so strong and so damn good at getting to the cup. But is that the reason why you think that there's a little bit more of offensive upside with Flemings?
I just think what Flemings brings you, the combination of ball handling, speed, and the mid-range shooting, and also I think he's on a different level as a passer, playmaker. Like, I think Burries is much more in the mold of, like, a Derek White, whatever, like a Nickeil Alexander-Walker, these guys who it's like, I can do a lot of pretty good stuff for you, whereas I think Flemings has a higher offensive ceiling, but I don't think there's anything wrong with just being more comfortable, confident in Burries translating, being more efficient, being more impactful defensively, being a better shooter off the catch at higher volume, so he's easier to play off ball. Like, I totally see that angle. He's a really good player, man. He's going to be 20.7 years old on draft night. So although he's also a freshman, he is more than a full year older than Flemings and some of these other guys. 6'4" guard out of Arizona. Really efficient. 16, 5, and 2.5 on 62% true shooting this season. Excellent spot-up shooter. 39% from deep on 4.5 attempts a game overall. Also, you talk about the strength with him. That's an advantage over Flemings. He is also bouncy as hell, and so he's an elite transition scorer. Another guy who just runs the floor really hard, and I mean, every once in a while will just like sneaky catch a lob or something, and you're like, okay, wow, he can get up there. Very good pick-and-roll creator. Strong pull-up three-point shooter, good mid-range floater game, good rim finisher, and he's got nice craft and footwork as a driver. He's definitely a better finisher than Flemings for sure. He's got that little low pickup that he loves. It's a little bit Brunson-esque, but kind of glides to the bucket off of that. So nice balanced scoring game at every level. I think that's something you give him props for. And he's a solidly high-field passer, but I will say, not somebody who really makes many advanced reads there. And at times, when he has been really pressured, I think we've seen him have some turnover issues as a sort of on-ball player, as a passer. And I just don't really see the elite offensive trait with him. Like, I think he is good as a scorer at every level. I think he is efficient. But I don't really see the way in which he is going to consistently threaten a defense in a way that is going to lead to him, again, creating a lot of opportunities for his teammates, having a super high scoring ceiling. That's why I have Burries here. I just don't see a particularly high offensive ceiling, but I do really think he's going to be a good all-around positive contributor on both ends. And there's, again, always ample room for a guy like that. His defense is really his calling card in a lot of ways, like as much as it can be for a defensive guard who is not like truly ridiculous, whatever, who's not causing like Caruso levels of chaos. But considering he does have a pretty big offensive load, like he's also a damn good defensive player, good size, really high motor, like brings a lot of ball pressure, always engaged, great hands, good technique, good instincts, good foot speed, and we saw him head-to-head against Kingston Flemings in the Big 12 title game just the other week, and I thought he did a really good job in that matchup. In fact, that's part of the concern for Flemings. It's when you have that combination of quickness and physicality that he's dealing with, is he able to consistently impose himself, or can you force him to settle a bit more? And I thought that Burries was able to force him to settle more and force him into a rough night overall. So I do really like him too. I just think everybody above him has a higher ceiling.
No, I mean, I think that's a good contrast to Kingston Flemings. I love Burries' defense. I think he is an awesome perimeter defender, defending through screens, moving his feet well, just good active energy there. And I agree with you on the points that you're making about his offensive game. The trait that blows me away, though, is every time I watch him, he just burrows his way and finds a way to the paint. And it doesn't really make sense to me. But, he reminds me of a running back hitting like cutback lanes or gaps. Like he just sees a hole and he explodes through it, and really good at getting to the line and drawing free throws too. There's just a different level of strength and physicality and transition scoring where I think Burries can just go coast to coast. And Kingston's a really good half-court driver too, but it's the insistence and the ability to just find a gap, find a hole, and explode through it. And I agree with you. I don't see a super high offensive ceiling in terms of running an offense through the guy, but I think as an off-ball scorer, as a spot-up kind of guy, as a transition scorer, as a floor spacer, like, again, Flemings, I definitely see him as more of a – I don't think he's going to be an elite lead offensive creator, but I see that potential more than with Burries. But I'm so confident in Burries being reliable and great in all those aspects. That's why I went with him. Where Flemings, I'm a little bit worried about the shot diet, the scaling up in terms of physicality. But, yeah, I completely see the argument for him. I really like all the little things that Burries does as a guard
I totally
prospect.
Get it.
I think both these guys are going to be studs at the next level, though.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think that in some ways the impact with Burries is more of a sure thing. And the transition stuff is really a big distinction. I mean, it's just something that sets him apart.
He gets me excited when he takes the rock in transition, man. I get tingly.
For sure. You and me both, brother. Okay, so we flip on those guys in the 7 and 8 spots. Who do you have at number 6, Logan?
I don't know if this guy is going to be on your list.
Well, that's intriguing. You crazy son of a bitch. You always keep me on my toes.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of draft previews that have had this guy in the 20s. Is
this going to be another Young Hansen type deal?
No. I don't have the Young Hansen. I have Tounde Yessoufou.
Yeah, you couldn't. Okay, yeah.
In my 6th spot. This is an upside bet. I'm not going to act like this is a sure thing. I just really like his potential. A lot of the guys that we have talked about, I think, have higher impact floors. A lot of guys in the lottery, I think, are more skilled in terms of one supreme, defining attribute or something like that. But I think that Yessoufou's got one of the highest ceilings and potentials in the draft, and that's why he's all the way up here for me. Again, I want to be clear about that. I think he's raw. I think this is a project sort of deal. I think there is a much wider gap between the potential outcome for a guy like Yessoufou versus the other guys that we've talked about today that I think are going to be reliable winners and contributors. He has got a far way to go, but Yessoufou is a guard/wing out of Baylor. I think he's going to play more on the wings in the NBA. 6'5", 215 pounds with an estimated 6'8.5" wingspan. He is 19 years old. He will be 20 on draft day. And this season at Baylor, he has given you 18, 6, and 2 on 47, 30, 74 splits with a 55.6% true shooting, 2 steals per game. My favorite thing about Yessoufou is just his athleticism, his strength, and his physical profile. The guy is so good at getting downhill and using that physicality and strength to carve his way downhill into the paint, and I think he has got a dangerous inside-the-arc scoring skill set. He's 57% on two-pointers. He is 64% at the rim, and I don't really think that number does him justice just because of the amount that he takes on the inside and the difficulty of some of his attempts on the interior. I just think his athleticism scales up to the NBA, where I think he is going to be a problem to guard for whoever. And I want to be clear about something, too. This guy is wired to score. I think playmaking is one of his biggest deficiencies. This guy dealing with double teams, passing out of double teams. He's gotten better at it because he's dealt with a lot of extra attention at Baylor, but that is an area that he definitely needs to develop in. His handle, his playmaking, when he is pressured, I definitely think those are areas that leave something to be desired. As well as his three-point shot. He is shooting just 30.2% on 5.2 three-point attempts per game. But I'm encouraged with his jump shot, with the shooting touch that we've seen inside the arc. He's 74% from the line. And when I look at how his athleticism translates to other parts of his game, 2 steals per game, I think this guy can be a very high-impact perimeter defender. And he's a really good positional rebounder, too. The guy gives you 2.4 offensive rebounds per game, which I think when we were looking at total value, his athleticism stands out from other guys that we're going to talk about with similar athletic profiles. And I just really like his scoring upside and skill set. Again, it's raw. It's in this sort of, athletic wing scoring archetype that we see in the league today, but I just see a star kind of upside with him. Again, I think he is farther away in terms of winning and well-rounded impact from some of the other guys that we've already talked about today in a meaningful way. So I would understand somebody not having him in the lottery due to how far he needs to go, but it's just rare. This kind of athletic profile in a guard and the potential that I think he could have in terms of his impact. And again, he's got a far way to go, but if he figures out this three-point jumper, I think you're looking at a really dangerous scoring wing that has potential to be impactful as a perimeter defender and as a rebounder. But I understand it. He's got a far way to go to realize his potential. But there are a few wings in this draft class that I think have this kind of athletic and scoring profile that Yessoufou does have.
This is very interesting, Logan. You always do keep me on your toes. You've got a draft take a year, I feel like, that sort of blindsides me. I honestly just need to watch more of Yessoufou, to have a more developed opinion on him. I do think based on what I have watched of him, I see the intrigue for sure athletically. I think the concerns are pretty much what you touched on. There's just some flaws that really do stand out when it comes to playmaking limitations, scoring blindness, the inconsistency of the jump shot. And when I think about how high the bar is in this draft, somebody with those sort of questions, I would struggle to get in the top 10. I do need to watch more of him. Let me be clear about that. But this is an insane draft. This draft is just so fucking good. And that's why, we brought up a couple guys who I just left off, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm low on those guys. The bar to get into the top 10 this year is really damn high. This is the best draft class that I've seen. I think this has the potential to be a historic draft class, and we've talked about that at the top, but the depth of talent here is also really damn good. So now I'm just wondering who you are going to have outside your top 10 who is in my top 6. Because in my 6th spot, I have Keaton Wagler, who I do think is a very talented basketball player. Freshman out of Illinois, going to be just 19.3 years old on draft night. Great size for being a ball-handling guard, 6'6", very productive and efficient this year. 18, 5, 4.5 on 60% true shooting, just 1.8 turnovers a game. really elite pick and roll player in college. 95th percentile pick and roll score at huge volume. He is a really damn good jump shooter. He is a really sound passer, playmaker, and he just has a really nice combination of those traits with the pace that he plays at, the ball handling at his size. He's a very, very well-rounded offensive player, and particularly with the ball in his hands, like the results that he's been able to produce out of pick and roll are really impressive. He's 42% on off the dribble threes, which is pretty ridiculous. And the space creation ability he has on step back threes specifically is pretty nuts. Like he can really spring backwards, and next thing you know, Keaton Wagler is like 6 feet free of any defender. Also, a really good foul drawer. A lot of guys in this class are really good at that skill, which is very valuable. He gets to the line 6 times a game. He makes 80% of his free throws. He's got a decent little floater game. And again, he can see over the top as a passer given his size. He's gifted as a passer. He's selfless, good touch as a live dribble passer. And just generally, again, I feel like the game is always in control when the ball is in his hands. He makes good decisions. He is not going to make a ton of oh my God, what a read, what a delivery kind of passes. Not an elite passer, but a very good one, a dependable one. Somebody who has a driver, not the best at rim finisher, but good footwork, some craftiness. He can play off 2 feet. He can step through. And then on top of this on-ball creation skill set that I really do like with him, he does a lot of the things that make you feel like he's going to fit in a lot of different spots offensively. He's a 40% catch and shoot guy from deep. He is an elite offensive rebounder for a guard, grabs 1.9 a game, and then defensively is somebody who I think is going to be fine. I think he's going to be holding his own out there, but he has the size to be a decent defensive player. So I think the knocks and the questions with him are the rim finishing, where he's just decent, and I think although I like his runner game, he could stand to improve the intermediate scoring overall. I think it could be nice to see him add a real layer of the mid-range. And I think it's fair to ask, what is his elite trait offensively? Is it the off-the-dribble three-point shooting, the three-point shooting overall? I think that's very possibly it, but I also don't know if he has an elite trait offensively. I was thinking about putting him in my 5 spot versus a guy who is probably a pretty controversial prospect this year, and he's just not as gifted offensively as that guy, and I think the gap there was big enough for me to say, all right, I'll take some of the concerns that come with that guy in my 5 spot over him. But I think the question with Wagler is going to be, is he a lead creator for an offense? Probably not. But if he's a very good secondary creator, good on the ball, good off the ball, sprays off the catch, grabs offensive boards, that's a guy who, again, I feel very confident in translating and being a good player at the next level. So there's just too much skill with the size, the shooting, the foul drawing, the passing. I really like Wagler, so I have him in my 6th spot.
Yeah, Wagler, I think, is the guy that we're going to be different on. Wagler's in my 11 spot, and that is my question about him. That's specifically why I left him off. He's amazing out of pick and roll, but the question that I wrote down is, at the next level, is he going to be able to break down a defender? I think he is elite out of pick and roll, but he is so heavy and dependent on it that, that's just my question. And then the athletic differences, the explosiveness, the shot diet, I think he is very jump shot heavy, and I see it. The handling for his size is really impressive, where if he taps into that, I mean, you are looking at a lead offensive creator that is going to kill guys out of the mid-range. I think his footwork, and like you mentioned specifically on off-the-dribble jump shots, is really, really impressive. But the questions about what his offensive role is specifically is why I left him off. I just don't know if this is going to be a guy that you're going to entrust with the reins of an offense, and I think that's kind of his big selling point. But I do think he's going to be a really good offensive player on or off ball because of his shooting touch and his touch from everywhere on the court.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think it's fair to question some of the lead creator stuff with him. I think he has to get stronger, and this is a theme. I mean, you can talk about this with a lot of guards, but it is a very important question to raise. You made a good point. The reliance on a screen often for his offense, in isolation against super physical, athletic perimeter defenses, does he have the ability to still create at that same level? Because I don't know that he's necessarily going to get a step in that setting. And so then it's like, does he become super reliant specifically on the step back three? Like, I can see that happening. And so I can see him struggling to beat really good switching defenses. And so because of that, again, I don't see him as the centerpiece for an offense, but when he's got this sort of on and off ball balance, and I think he's going to be able to hold his own defensively, and I really trust him to make very good decisions.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, there's just too much there that I like to keep him outside of this sort of range.
I think he's going to be a really impactful offensive player for whatever role he is going to be in. But I when I look at, I do like, even though I think he's got a lot further to go in terms of polish, I do like the athletic traits that Yessoufou has in comparison to a guy like Wagler.
Okay, so now we're into the top 5. I was wondering for a moment if we were going to differ on somebody else who I could have seen you maybe taking a kill all small guards angle against. I wouldn't be surprised if Pablo Escobar and Jokic Joestar have sworn this guy off in Thailand if they've got some sort of dartboard or effigy of him that they burn. Is that guy in your 5 spot the guy who I'm talking about, who it's very obvious if you know?
He is in my 5 spot. Is he for you?
Yes, and that is Darius Acuff, ladies and gentlemen.
I did briefly question that, and I'm not going to lie. Some of the guys in my 11 through 14 spots who I have been enamored with, I may have soured on a little bit more because of that small guard phenomenon. Maybe they would be higher prior to that take going
so
viral.
Sad. Such a joyless take, but so true.
It is. Acuff's different, though, man. Acuff, that wiggle, man. There's 2 things that really get me excited about Darius Acuff as a lead creator. For those who don't know, Acuff is a guard from Arkansas. He's 6'3", 190 pounds with an estimated 6'6" wingspan. Take the wingspan numbers with a grain of salt. We'll get those officially closer to combine time. He's 19 years old this season, giving Arkansas 23-3 in 6.5 on 49, 45, 80 splits, 60.7% true shooting, which is 2.2 turnovers per game. My 3 favorite things about Darius Acuff as a creator: 1, his wiggle. I think the guy's got really nice change in pace, shaking defenders in isolation. Really, really special. I think the most underrated aspect of his game, though, is just his physicality, man. And that's a separator for me from a guy like Kingston Flemings. I love guys who use their lower body strength, who use their leverage, who use their offhand to create. And Acuff's really good there. Anybody that you see him battle up against, he is using that offhand to gain any kind of advantage, and I think he's really good at using it to get to the rim, to score there. Elite basketball IQ and instincts, decision-making, like I mentioned, 6.5 assists per game, and I do think with Acuff's skill set, he could thrive in an on-ball or off-ball kind of scoring role. I think he's definitely more in that lead guard kind of archetype, but I think he's going to be effective across a multitude of play types. Pick-and-roll scoring, scoring in transition in the open floor, coming off screens, cutting. I think he's going to be successful offensively in all those areas, and obviously his shooting touch is a major selling point. Honestly, the only knock that I have on Acuff is basically what we have alluded to from Jokic Joestar and Pablo Escobar. Simply his archetype as a small guard. I mean, is this guy just going to get attacked every single possession defensively down the court? College teams are doing it. You assume that they're going to do it in the NBA. Like, it's just a dilemma of guards in today's NBA, like we're talking about. He is going to have to be so ridiculously great offensively to warrant playing time, because I think he's going to get picked on defensively. And there is just...
Yeah.
There's only a certain amount of impact that he can make through effort and energy and intensity. There's just athletic and physical limitations that he's going to have to overcome. And then I guess the other argument would be like shot diet and him being reliant on jump shots. But he's got such great shooting touch, and he's such a great scorer and playmaker that's really minute. Like,
yeah.
Basically, my big knock on Acuff is just I think he is always likely going to be a defensive liability with his archetype. And I mean, damn, man, I feel bad. Like, I feel like Acuff would be a kind of a no-brainer top 4, top 3 guy in most draft classes. The top 4 in this draft class is just so ridiculous that Acuff doesn't crack that. But he's ridiculously skilled. And, I mean, he comes from the Coach Calipari guard tree.
He does.
I mean, how can you not like the guy?
He does, man. And holy, he is a special offensive player. Like, Darius Acuff is going to be one of the most interesting test cases, I think, for the value of the small guard in today's NBA, because it's like you'd be hard-pressed to find a better offensive prospect in terms of a guard. And you'd also probably be hard-pressed to find a worse defensive prospect. I mean, like, that's the thing, right? We can talk generically about, these small guards who are probably going to get attacked, who are going to be negative defenders. And then you have a guy who, as you said, in college, that is already the game plan that teams are utilizing against him. Like, we're talking about a guy who is going to be in the Darius Garland, Jalen Brunson category of defenders. Like, I do believe that. I just don't see reason to think otherwise. He's a bad screen navigator. Like, the effort and instincts just are not there at all, on top of him being a small guard. So I think he's going to be a big negative on that side of the ball. And then that's where you can argue, all right, is the offensive impact value going to offset that? Or should you go with somebody who is a safer pick to just be like a good all-around contributor, like some of the guys we talked about more recently? But I just think there's such a real possibility where Darius Acuff is Dame, where he's just Damian Lillard 2.0. Like, he is so insane offensively that I have to still have him in my top 5. I acknowledge fully it's probably going to be an uphill battle in some ways to build a really good team around him because of the sort of players that you have to prioritize defensively to cover up for him. I also think he can do so much to improve an offense that it's like he's still a damn good building block. Like, there is a line. We've talked about it. If I had to bet, I think Acuff is on the right side of that line. I think that he could be the best offensive player in this class. And we're talking about a class that has AJ Dybantsa and Darryn Peterson and Cameron Boozer, the strongest draft class I have ever seen. Like, there is a world where offensively Acuff is the best player to come out of it. Now, he is absolutely a tier below those guys because of the defensive issues. But, dude, like, the offensive production, the scoring, playmaking volume, efficiency you're seeing from a freshman guard, it's historic. Like, Sean Miller basically called him Jesus. I mean, he basically said that guy's the greatest basketball player I've ever seen. And it's like, I get it, dude. The three-point shooting is so ridiculous. 49% on catch-and-shoot threes, 40% on off-the-dribble threes at big-time volume. Like, this is where, again, I come with the Dame comparison, and there's differences, of course. There always is whenever you make a player comp. Like, Dame is more explosive than him, but when it comes to that combination of absolutely ludicrous pull-up three-point shooting with similar style as drivers, in the sense that, like, there's that straight line sort of downhill speed, like shifty, under control, but not super herky-jerky, stop and start, snake the pick and roll. Like, no, these guys are going to extend the defense like crazy. And if they're not taking a pull-up three, then their objective is get downhill, get to the free throw line a ton. The ability to stress a defense uniquely like that is just so insanely valuable. And then I do think, compared to like a Dame, Acuff is a much more natural playmaker. I think he's a really gifted passer too. So just an insane offensive player. But specifically the shooting, he's got everything. I mean, side steps, step backs. Like, when it comes to pick and roll, pull up threes, he just does not really need much airspace at all to rise and fire and obliterate you. And then out of handoffs, off screens, like, there is a willingness to move off ball with this guy, like you mentioned, that makes him even more valuable. And he's a lethal shooter. And he's a 92nd percentile pick and roll scorer overall because, again, he does have that ability to get downhill. He's good at finding angles as a driver. He gets good leverage on drives, and he's hard to stay in front of, especially if you feel like you have to step way out there to contest the potential pull-up three. Does get to the free throw line about 6 times a game, which is a really good rate. Does have a really nice runner game. 46% on runners. And I do think, even though he has that standout combo of the pull-up three-point shooting and the straight line downhill speed, don't overlook the floater game. And then he does have a good mid-range scoring game. Like, he's only 39% on 2-point pull-ups, so the efficiency isn't great. But if you just look at the comfort that he has with that shot, like, I think there's reason to believe he can shoot mid-high 40s on that. And again, it's not going to be his bread and butter go-to, but great. It's just another counter. It's just another thing he has in his arsenal as a scorer. So I think the scoring ceiling is massive. I mean, I think this guy's a 25-point per game scorer at the next level. I think he could be a 28, 30-point per game scorer. Like, he's nuts. The combination of three-point shooting, foul generating, and then again, some of the intermediate game we have seen from him is just totally nuts. And then as a passer, very ambidextrous, elite lob passer. Like, the anticipation, the touch on those passes is excellent. Good court mapping. Like, I think he is a really, really damn good passer, especially for his size, being a smaller guard. I think he's going to create a ton of opportunities for teammates, and then keeps turnovers very low for his offensive usage, just 2.2 turnovers a game, as he has like this massive, massive offensive load on his plate. So I just think, yeah, this is a guy where, like, you put the ball in his hands and he is going to create for himself so efficiently. He's going to spoon feed teammates interior passes. He's going to stress the defense so much. He is going to be somebody, if I had to guess, who is like going to make teams top 10 sort of offenses in the NBA. And I know I'm saying a lot about this guy for being the number 5 prospect in this class, but again, it's because the big 3 are like touched by God. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Acuff is one of the best offensive guard prospects I've ever seen. One of the better guard prospects, period, that I've seen. So the knocks with him, the questions, we talked about how bad the defense is. And then he is a small guard, which also does matter when you're talking about finishing around the basket. He is just a decent rim finisher. He can get into the paint a lot, to the free throw line a lot, but not particularly good at finishing among the trees and whatnot. But I just think there is a high probability he's a transformative offensive player. And so even knowing that he's going to be a bad defender, like, I'll take that chance. I'll take that chance with this guy as a top 5 pick. It's not like Jeremiah Fears last year, right? Who is a guy who I was high-ish on, ended up going pretty high in the draft. And I was like, this guy is a great offensive talent, but he's going to be a really bad defender. And it's just like, I don't know if he's going to be on the right side of the line. Acuff is a level up offensively, where I feel like if he's not a star, I'm going to be disappointed.
Well said. I mean, I'm super high on his offensive game, too. I'm going to be disappointed if he's not like an all-star caliber, legitimate number 1 for an offense.
If he doesn't score 25 and give you 8 assists a game and do it on like 61+% true shooting, if he doesn't have years like that, I will be disappointed by what happens with Darius Acuff. And by the way, if he doesn't do that, then it's like, maybe you don't want him on your team at all, because again, you got to be like this feature star game changer offensively to justify being so bad defensively. I just think he probably will be.
If Acuff isn't, I don't know if I'd ever take a small guard again, man.
Yeah, damn near. Damn near.
Like,
damn near. So, who's in your 4 spot, Logan?
In my 4 spot is a guy that has significantly less offensive polish than Acuff, but I really like him. Caleb Wilson. This is another guy that I feel like in maybe a regular draft would be a bona fide number 1 overall pick. Like, I think people would be fawning over this guy even more so if these top 3 didn't exist. He is an incredible athlete. Wilson is out, I believe, the rest of the season, has been, but he is a wing big from UNC, 6'10", 215 pounds, an estimated 7-foot wingspan. He is 19 years old, and this season for UNC gave him 29-3 on 58, 26, 71 splits, 62.6% true shooting, nearly 3 stocks per game, in 7.5 free throw attempts a night. Floor is what I would say, due to his athleticism, is one of the biggest selling points on Caleb Wilson. He is an incredibly explosive, powerful, and fluid, coordinated athlete for his size. And due to this athleticism, you can just see his impact so easily affecting so many different areas of the game and being a really versatile kind of player on the glass, rebounding defensively and offensively. This is a guy that you expect to be a transition monster in the open floor, and who should be, I mean, I think a true freak in terms of defensive upside, man, and what he is able to do as a low man, as a rim protector, as a defensive playmaker on the perimeter and on the interior. Scoring and shooting, and I would say his offensive game in those areas are where you're a little bit more concerned, especially in the half court. His touch specifically, he's shooting just 26% on three-pointers on basically 1.1 attempts per game. That's a real question mark if he's going to be impactful there at all, or defense is just going to sag off the guy. And what that does in terms of where he's going to play positionally, a 4 or a 5 man. The other damning stat that I would say is his scoring on non-dunk attempts at the rim. Caleb Wilson was just 44.4% on non-dunk attempts at the rim. For context, he shot 68% at the rim overall. That's inflated due to, how much the guy just yams everything. Again, I do want to say, I think he has a little bit of a higher floor because of the free throw drawing rate. Like, I think this guy's going to draw a ton of fouls at the next level, and that is a big component of his offensive game translating. 7.5 attempts a night is gaudy, but you do worry a little bit about his finishing. Personally, I think his finishing is going to develop. I think this guy is just going to get better and better there. When you're this kind of athlete, I think he's going to get better there with time. I am a little bit more worried about him as a shooter. Offensively, I would say his handling ability is another area of concern as well. Yeah. His ability to legitimately put the ball on the floor. I think he's got decently high feel in terms of him being a connective passer within the flow of the offense, as a decision maker, out of the short roll, as a pick and roll kind of guy. But, I don't think this is a guy that's ever really going to, unless he really is an outlier in terms of development, like really putting the ball on the floor and creating and breaking guys down in terms of isolation. That's long-term kind of high upside. But again, this is a freak athlete that I think has a really high impact floor in terms of all the different areas in which he can impact the game. Yeah. And he's just a rare athlete. And I think I'm just more confident in the other guys in their floor with their skill to athletic ratio in comparison to Caleb. But I think in a lot of drafts, Caleb Wilson would be a guy that you consider as a number 1 overall kind of prospect. He's a special kind of athlete, and I think does have a super high floor, but also a ton of upside. So I'm really high on Caleb Wilson. I just think the top 3 are in a class of their own.
Yeah, they are for sure, but I have Caleb Wilson in my 4th spot as well. He is, as you said, just a ridiculous athlete who can really impose himself on the game athletically on both ends in a very unique way. The fluidity, the elite rebounding, the activity on both ends, the ability to generate, this massive free throw rate, a .62 free throw rate is absurd. And then he does also have high feel, and he does really care. Like, just checks a lot of boxes where you think that guy is going to translate to the NBA game. He is an explosive leaper, great off 2 feet. I think we're going to see him again make a ton of these high effort plays on the glass and whatnot offensively, and in transition, he is an absolute weapon, runs the floor hard with the ball in transition. Just has these long strides and like pretty sick Euro in his bag where he can just, with a few steps, glide right to the basket and dunk on you. Another really interesting part about his offensive game, though, is what he does out of the post. Like, I think this guy is going to be a big-time mismatch stacker, and that is, I think, what makes him the level of prospect that he is, that it's not just, okay, Energizer Bunny with A-plus athletic tools. Great, like, obviously, that leads to a certain level of impact, but when you get into these conversations, I think you also need to have confidence that this is a guy who can be a featured piece offensively, and I think that Wilson can. He was a 92nd percentile post scorer at massive volume. Like, really can't overstate how much in the half court the UNC offense and like Wilson's offensive game is about him posting up, which you don't see a ton from a 6'10 power forward in today's game, but he's got phenomenal footwork out of the post. Like, when it comes to just the depth of counters there, step throughs, up and unders, the comfort, getting to a fadeaway, he's got so much in his bag and plays with really good physicality, like loves to initiate contact, give a guy a bump, draw a foul, create a little separation and get to the turnaround, whatever it may be. And he's got great hang time to rise over top and make some of these touch shots and jumpers over defenders, and he can contort his body and sort of find angles in the air like that. He's just a really unique player in 2026 in that way. I don't think you see a lot of dudes with his build and his athleticism who necessarily look to like weaponize it out of the post like that anymore. And he really does, and he's very good at it, while he also clearly has this play finishing potential around the basket that can make him such an effective off-ball player. And then even though we didn't see him utilized so much as a pick and roll big, it was more posting up again, offensive rebounds, cuts, transition. Like, I think he can be used more probably as a screener and finisher off the roll. I don't think that's ever going to be his calling card at the next level. But then you have the defense, and that is as much the intriguing side of the ball as the offense, if not more so. Like, I think he can just make destructive plays as a help side rim protector. Some of the chase down blocks, some of the plays that he has been able to make defensively, saving baskets at the rim, like absolutely ridiculous. He just flies in and you're like, that's just a superhero, man. Like, he's just one of those level of crazy athletes. And you can use him on the perimeter too. I was watching the Cal game, which, by the way, Cal won. Great win for Cal over UNC. Lost a heartbreaker in the NIT to St. Joe's. I don't want to talk about it. But, like, using him as a defender on traps where the size and length with him, it's just so overwhelming. Like, it's so hard to get the ball over him. He's got great hands, too, so really good steal generator. Just the guy who sort of has that prototypical do-it-all defensive four skill set that like so many teams are frothing at the mouth for. There are some knocks and questions with Caleb for sure, and I think that's why he's not with the top three, right? There are just more flaws in his game. The handle in traffic, I'm with you. He loses it a lot. In that context, that's something of a concern when it comes to what he looks like as a face-up player at the next level, as an isolationist, just overall his ability to create with the ball in his hands. The jump shot is a real question. Like, he's 71% from the line, but 38% effective field goal percentage on 54 jumpers this year. Like, the jumper was really rough, but then again, he looks comfortable shooting face-up jumpers. He looks comfortable shooting these turnarounds. Like, jump shots out of the post look natural for him. He doesn't hit them at a good clip, but it feels like there's reason to believe he could become good at those shots. The three-point shot, though, is different. Off the catch, like, the energy transfer is just not seamless. It sort of looks like he's having to consciously think about loading up, and it just doesn't look natural for him. So the touch, again, it's just like sort of solid all around. If I had to guess, I feel like he's going to be a passable shooter, but not much more than that. I could see him becoming like a Julius Randle kind of shooter, where he's very good from the mid-range and the high post, inconsistent from deep, though, usually in the low 30s. Again, I mean, outside of like, there was 1 year that Randle shot it really well from deep. Other than that, he's hovered around like 33% over the last 5 years, I think. So that's a swing factor for him for sure. But I do feel like, I mean, if he's decent, if he's somebody who can like knock down wide open threes off the catch at a solid clip, like he's only going to take a few of them a game. So I think, again, there's so many other routes to him impacting the game offensively. And then as a defender, I think there's so much that you like. He is going to be switching a ton. I mean, I think switchability is potentially the most intriguing part of what he can do defensively, because there's almost like this sort of Jonathan Isaac kind of build with him, this combination of size, length, athleticism, where you could see him switching and just like smothering people. But he's got a polish there. Like, he can be a bit overly reactive. He's a little jumpy as a defender overall. And although, I mean, there's so much that like him just being a freak athlete allows him to do defensively, I don't really think he has great defensive instincts yet. Like, for the level of defensive talent he could be, I do think there's a fair bit of refining that needs to be done. But then when you think about, again, what the athleticism and the physicality and the motor does on both ends, and the rebounding impact and the scoring that is just sort of baked into his game because of all these different things he does athletically, and the defensive versatility and toolkit, like, I still couldn't have him any lower. When I think about him versus Acuff, obviously Acuff is on a different level as an offensive player, but like what I feel confident in getting from Caleb as a two-way high-impact guy, I just think he's going to be somebody who drives winning. I think he has all the athleticism and the basketball mentality to do so, but he doesn't have the ceiling of the three above him. Like, he's just not a complete alien like those guys are. Physically, he is, but in terms of the all-around basketball talent that those guys are. So now we get into the most discussed trio, of course, of this draft season. I'm just going to say this up front. You could go 1 through 3 in any combination. I would have zero problem with it. I probably considered, well, not every combination, but I know that I have like tons of internal conflict and questions about how these guys should be ranked. Who's in your 3 spot, though?
So I have Cameron Boozer in my 3 spot.
So do I, but I fucking hate it, man. I hate it. I want to have Boozer higher. Part of me wants to have him number 1, but I do still have him number 3 like you.
There's a remarkable level of offensive polish with Cameron Boozer it's so rare to find in a prospect. And, like, that's why when I think people can kind of overthink Boozer sometimes, where they go, especially offensively, where they go, oh, this guy's a tweener at the 4 or 5 spot. Is he a number 1? Is he? I think the guy's going to slot in and win and do winning things offensively immediately, and there's even more to tap into. So I don't want to get caught up in, is the guy a number 1? Is he a number 2? Is he a number 3? I think whatever role you slot this guy in on, he's going to be super effective. He is a big man for Duke. He's been great all year. Obviously, he is the son of former spray-on hairline NBA player Carlos Boozer. That's what he's most famously known for.
Looking to change the Boozer family legacy, by the way. They got a lot riding on him.
They really do. I mean, like I said, my favorite thing is the offensive game and the connective stuff that he does, where I think the guy is going to be super effective out of the pick and roll as a roll man, as a short roll decision maker. He's going to be awesome as a post scorer and as a mismatch attacker. Like, you know, sometimes when we talk about these really physical, strong guys with great profiles, like a Paolo, you know, there was some projection and some growth that needed to happen there mentally that Paolo still is working on. Boozer knows how to throw around his weight and use his strength. Like, that's one of my favorite things about him, where at the next level, I don't need to worry about, is Boozer going to figure out how to use his size? No, he knows how to use it, and he is going to be a great post scorer and mismatch attacker immediately. He's got great finishing and skill, and like offensively, if it's spreading the floor, if it's moving the rock within the flow of the offense, making good decisions, on ball, off ball, there's so much there. I don't worry about him at all in that regard, and I don't worry about him at all banging on the glass. I think this guy is going to be really effective offensively and defensively. Rebounding. Defensively is where I worry about Boozer a little bit more, and specifically that is why he's in my 3 spot, where that's where I would hear the tweener argument and aspect of Boozer. But not offensively. I want to be clear about that. I think as your 5 guy or as your 4 guy offensively, he's going to be a stud. Defensively is where I worry about him a little bit more. I think there's a significant lack of verticality and potential impact that he can have as a straight-up and help-side rim protector, where I don't think he's going to be a defensive anchor in that regard. I think he can be a plus defensively, but I don't think he's going to be a game-changing kind of guy on that end of the floor. And then, along with protecting the rim, I am worried about him a little bit in space, and that's against the best of the best. I want to be clear about that. I think the defending in space can get overblown a little bit with Boozer in terms of being criticized, but I think against the really quick, fast, elite, twitchy guards, I do worry about him a little bit more. So that would kind of be my only knock about Boozer, is just my concerns about him defensively and whether he's going to play the 4 spot or play the 5 spot. But I also know that I am getting a really high-level rebounder and physical guy in that regard, too. So I am getting some value in terms of what he's going to bring me on the glass. But when I look at a guy like Darryn Peterson, I'm a little bit more confident in him as a positional defender. And I feel the same way about AJ, where I'm a little bit more concerned about Boozer. But like I said about these other 2 guys in my 4 and 5 spot, and a lot of draft classes, I think Cameron Boozer would be a bona fide number 1 overall prospect, and people would have nothing but good things to say about the guy. So all of my defensive concerns that are very secondary to all the great things that I'm saying about him, and I think he's going to be a stud on offense.
Yeah, Boozer goes number 1 in most draft classes. Like, if you're not dealing with a Wemby or a Flag or a Dybantsa / Peterson, like, this guy's going number 1 overall. He's absolutely ridiculous. He has had one of the greatest freshman seasons in college basketball history. And coming into the year, when I did have Boozer number 3 among these guys, and as I still do, although, again, I have complicated feelings about it because he's so damn good, I said, like, I think that in terms of long-term upside, give me the other two marginally so. In terms of who is going to be the best college basketball player, that will be Cam Boozer. And that has been the case. He has been the most productive, impactful, efficient player in college basketball. He's going to win National Player of the Year probably in a landslide. Like, the numbers are just absurd, dude. I mean, 22.5, 10.5, over 4 assists a game on 66% true shooting. Like, that's a one-of-a-kind college stat line to do it for the best team in the country, too. And there's just a ridiculous combination of interior and perimeter effectiveness and a force and skill with this guy. And to me, and we talked about this already with like Yaxel, but I mean, turn the dial up to 1,000 when you're talking about Cam Boozer. When you've got this sort of size, strength, feel, shooting, versatility, you work, you succeed, period, point blank, like just no doubt about it. There is not more of a sure thing in recent draft memory than Cam Boozer. Like, again, you look at a Wemby and you're like, obviously the upside is on a different level. And Wemby is one of a kind, but just in terms of the certainty I have that Boozer's game is going to translate, he is going to be an impactful, winning NBA player, you literally can't be more confident about that. So the guy has been so damn good all year. He's impacted the game in so many different ways. He basically hasn't taken a bad shot, hasn't made a bad decision the entire year. All the while, he's one of the very best post-up scorers in college basketball. I mean, just a special power player, right? 6'9", 250. The craft that he has, the footwork playing off of 2 feet, combined with the sort of efficient, decisive ball handling and the unique body control for him being this absolute tank that he has as a driver where he's so good, the ability to generate just massive amounts of free throws, right? 7.5 a game, and he makes 79% of them. When you think about the premier mismatch attackers in the NBA, like Cam Boozer is going to be top of that list, man. There are so few players who are big enough and quick enough to guard this guy. Emphasis on big enough and strong enough, though. Like, he is so strong. He is so intentional as a driver, as a post-up player. He's so physical. He's such an elite finisher. He has very good touch, like just always in control, pretty much getting what he wants and getting a good shot for his team one way or another. Like, every time that he's involved, he's going to be also one of the best shooting bigs in basketball. I mean, he's 40% from deep on 4 attempts a game as an above the break shooter, especially. Really excellent. He is going to be one of the very best rebounders in basketball. 3.4 offensive boards a game, 10.5 total rebounds a game. And then he's this stellar play finisher where it's like, yeah, as a cutter off the roll, like he's an absolute wagon to deal with around the basket. And then he can handle and facilitate out of pick and roll efficiently and is limited as a pull-up shooter, but it's like if you give him tons of room, like again, if you just go under a screen, like he can even make those shots from beyond the arc. And then you think about all the different ways he can connect an offense as a passer. If you're going up against a zone look, you just stick this guy at the nail and you watch him make great decisions all game. What he can do as a short roll passer. I mean, he's got phenomenal hands too, is another thing. And he's so selfless and he's so smart and he's an elite outlet passer. Like, the level of value, impact, efficiency you're getting from this guy in so many different ways, like literally just look play type by play type at Cam Boozer's efficiency. It's stupid. We can do it right now. He's an 84th percentile post-up scorer. He's a 97th percentile spot-up scorer. 89th percentile as the pick and roll ball handler. 84th percentile as the pick and roll man. 89th percentile transition. 87th percentile cut, 74th percentile isolation, 87th percentile putbacks. And the balance between all of these different play types is absurd. Like, you would be so hard pressed to find a more versatile offensive big man as a prospect in the history of this game. Like, truly. And part of that is they just make bigs different nowadays, right? Some of these guys handle and shoot and like do things that they didn't used to do. But I am confident this guy is going to be one of the best post-up, rebounding, shooting, passing, ball handling bigs in the NBA. All the while, he is a flat-out elite competitor. It's not just, oh, he's so smart, he cares so much. And it's a cliche to say, okay, a guy is a winner. But if he wins the Natty this year, like, all Cam Boozer has done in his entire life is win. And it's not a coincidence because there are certain best players who carry themselves like, I'm the best player. I don't need to do X dirty little thing. and the willingness to do everything on the basketball court is what makes Cam Boozer so special. It's what sets him apart. Like, there's a million different ways to utilize him and have him positively impact the game. Offensively, I think he is such a sure thing to be a monster. Defensively, I do think he's going to be really smart, positionally sound. He can switch. He's got good hands. Not really much of a rim protector, though. I think average, probably below average for an NBA center in that regard. I would agree with you when it comes to, okay, I mean, not great foot speed as a switching defender, but still, I think just good instincts, good positional soundness, and the hands are really good, where I do think he's going to be definitely a plus switching big at the next level, and so that's probably the scheme that he's going to be deployed in most often. I want to have Boozer higher than this, just because, like, I can almost only say good things about him. And that's why, again, like, my confidence in him being good at the next level is number one in this draft class, as special as Dybantsa and Peterson both are. But I do think when you think about what Dybantsa and Peterson are capable of, their offensive ceilings, their scoring ability, it's so, so special that I do think I have to give the nod to them. If Boozer were more of a clear plus defensively, he would be my choice. If it was everything he does offensively, and then he's also just like even a plus rim protector, like, okay, give me Cam Boozer as my number one guy because there's no setting in which he is not making his team way, way better. That is true offensively. Defensively, I think he's going to be solid. I think he's probably even a slight plus, but as a center, there is a little bit of wonkiness with him defensively. And again, as confident as I am in his offensive impact and production and efficiency, it's like Dybantsa and Peterson could both easily be the best scorer on the planet, like best offensive player on the planet kind of conversations down the line. And I don't think that I see that ability with Boozer, because as good as he is, he's not a unicorn. And there's just certain limitations in terms of the ball handling creation that I don't think will ever be a problem for him, but maybe just keep him out of best in the world conversations down the line. And that's literally like the sort of bar we're talking about. If these guys aren't all NBA players, these three, I will be disappointed, which is an insane thing to say, but that's this draft class. So, who's in your 2 spot, Logan?
This is where I have Darryn Peterson.
Okay, we remain in lockstep. And why is that?
Peterson has certainly had a strange year.
So weird.
It's one of the strangest seasons I can remember from any like real top-tier star kind of prospect. That is one of my big knocks, just the strangeness of the hamstring and the cramps, and also the mentality thing that you're talking about, Boozer. That was another reason why I considered having Boozer above him potentially, just because of how high his floor is, how dependable he seems, and just, again, like you mentioned, how he carries himself. Like, I love his mentality and the way he approaches the game. I do just think Peterson's ceiling is higher, ultimately, and I hate banking on that, but the guy has got elite touch, some of the best I've ever seen at every single level. His jump shot is so pure, and he just seems like he is going to slot in and be such a high-level perimeter shooter at the next level. And his ability to be efficient with his touches and protect the basketball, I think he's really good in that regard too. The few areas I've been disappointed with Peterson in college this season are really 2 different ones. One, I would say his playmaking has disappointed me a little bit. I would say especially when we're comparing him to the likes of Boozer and Dybantsta. Like, the number is just low, 1.6 per game. I don't know if that's interrelated with, like, willingness or advantage creation, but it is strange to me where I do look at both of those guys as better than him, at least immediately coming into the league. And then his high-end athleticism. I don't know if it's because of the hamstring injury, and that's he just didn't seem as athletic or to showcase it as much as he did when he was in high school. And so those are my slight knocks, but really the on-ball and off-ball scoring ceiling is why he's here at number 2. I mean, the guy just seems like he is going to be a almost effortless 20-point-per-game scorer at the next level, and he is going to be able to do it in so many different areas, in transition, coming off of screens. Like, his skill set is just one of that you think he should be able to slot in anywhere, and his touch is so unbelievable. There's just an athletic difference, I would say, in comparison to a guy like AJ. I just think AJ's a fucking freak, man, to say it pretty succinctly. Peterson, I think, coming into this year would have been probably my number one pick, but I just think AJ is the total package and has such a rare combination of size, power, and skill in comparison to Peterson. Well, I just think his impact floor and ceiling is going to be higher than a guy like Peterson, but Peterson's a freak, man. He has got unreal touch at the rim, from the perimeter, good wiggle. Like, I think Peterson's going to be a stud, but I just think the strangeness of his collegiate season are what keep him out of consideration for me. And again, when I look at him versus Boozer, the reason that I didn't have Boozer there is the positional defense, where I think Peterson can be a plus at his position, where I worry about Boozer. Like you said, I think Boozer's going to be a plus, but that little bit of concern is what keeps him from being higher than Peterson here in comparison to one another. But I like DP a lot. I just like AJ a lot more, man. I think AJ is a home run kind of prospect.
Yeah, there was a real minute where I thought that I was going to have Boozer 2 and DP 3. But what's so hard is, like, with this really bizarre freshman season, how much stock do we put into that versus what we saw from Darryn Peterson in high school, when we were pretty clearly just looking at, like, one of the great guard prospects in NBA history and a player who very easily projects out to having zero holes in their game. And I ended up feeling like I just don't think we're looking at the same player this year because of the hamstring. And that's not to say it wasn't weird and cramps and nausea and, like, all of these strange things that happened this year. Like, was there maybe, I don't know, 25-30% of that does fall on Peterson, maybe not being competitive enough, not pushing himself to the limit that he should have to give Kansas basketball everything they needed this year. Like, I think that's possible. I also think when I watch him athletically compared to what we saw at Prolific Prep, even understanding the competition is different, like, I just think Darryn Peterson is a more explosive athlete than what we've seen in college this year. I think the guy who has lived so much off of jump shots, like, that's not really him. He's an outstanding jump shooter. Outstanding. Going to be one of the very best jump shooters in the NBA, who, at his best, blends that with this combination of quickness and the vertical leaping ability and the body control and a strong frame and really good size around the basket to also be a very good rim finisher and downhill scorer. And that's where the potential with this guy is just absolutely nuclear. So I've been an AJ number one guy. In fact, this is the same order I've had the big three and since before the year, even though things have changed. Like, I'm still going to err on the side of giving DP a lot of benefit of the doubt here because, my God, the talent is just absolutely monumental and what he can be offensively while being a totally solid and maybe plus defender as well. But the shooting is so ridiculous. I mean, he's just such an effortless shooter, off the catch, off the dribble, with serious range, like 38% from deep, 43% off the catch, an elite movement shooter and willing to move without the ball. And, the pull-up numbers this year aren't crazy, but, like, I don't care. It's not a big enough sample. We have seen that Darryn Peterson is a ridiculous pull-up three-point shooter, and the combination of footwork, size, balance, shot-making, range that he has, like, he's going to be probably one of the handful of best jump shooters, three-point shooters in the NBA. And he's also a very good intermediate scorer. He's 46% on two-point jumpers, really good mid-range game. He's over 42% on runners at volume, very, very good floater game. So I just think the scoring that you get from him in terms of skill as a jump shooter from intermediate range, like, is so damn elite. And then when you consider the athlete and the downhill attacker that we have seen him be previously, like, it's very easy to see him being one of the absolute best scorers in the NBA. So I really think a big question is, how good is Peterson as a two-point scorer? How much did injuries affect that this year? I lean on the side of injuries affected it a fair bit. And his finishing this year was not great. Again, he did live off the jumpers a lot. I just blame injuries for us not seeing the same level of explosiveness. What's a little bit weirder to me with Peterson than that, because that can mostly be explained by injuries, is the playmaking not being what I expected. Because Peterson has always had a scorer's mindset. He's always been a score-first guard. But if you watch him at Prolific Prep, like this is a guy who played a ton out of pick and roll. And like there was every indication that, yeah, this guy's elite scorer, but he's also good enough as a playmaker to be like an awesome offensive number one. Again, it's not that it came crazy naturally to him, but he made solid reads out of pick and roll. He had pretty good touch and accuracy, and he gets into the teeth of the defense, and he's a good jump passer, and he can find dudes with laydown passes. He can find shooters once he gets into the paint. And like, he's just going to stress defenses so much that he's going to rack up 5 assists a game just because he's a good enough passer and such a great scorer. And then the fact that he averaged, so few assists this year, under 2 a game, and he was a 20th percentile pick and roll creator is bizarre. Now, I think that number needs to be contextualized by the fact that the offensive talent around him is not good. So in terms of his pick and roll scoring efficiency, he was like pretty average, but just did not really make some of the reads that I thought he would have, and ultimately just didn't really create much offense for his teammates. So that concerns me a bit. But then again, it's like, I've seen him do it before. So this is the thing. When these guys are such elite talents and you watch them for years, like obviously I want to credit Cam Boozer for just having a flat out way better season than Darryn Peterson. But also like our goal here is not to dish out credit. That's what the college awards are for. Our job here is to project who do we actually still think is going to be the best. And I still think Peterson has the potential to be damn near the perfect guard, where he is this elite on-ball scorer at every level. He's an elite off-ball scorer. He's a plus playmaker. He is a solid 2+ defender. And like dudes who check all those boxes, because again, the elite pick and roll scoring, creating guards, they're valuable, but there's a lot of them. But when you combine that with the ability to play off the ball and the athleticism that Peterson has and the defense tool and the rebounding, he's a really good rebounder in high school. Like, I just think the offensive ceiling is so high, and it feels like worst case scenario for Peterson, he's a huge positive in any situation, because with the level of shooting and athleticism and size that he has, like, how could he not be? So I love Peterson. I love all these guys. At the end of the day, like you said, AJ Dybantsa is just the best scoring prospect I've ever seen. He can do things on the basketball court nobody I've ever seen can do. And so even though I have a couple questions about him too, again, I have the fewest questions about Boozer, what I see Dybantsa being capable of, to me, makes him the number 1 prospect in this class. And it sounds like you agree.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, it's the power, size, and skill combination for a guy like AJ. It is unbelievable at times. This is a guy that I do look at as a future number 1 offensively, and then has the potential to be a really impactful wing defender too. Now, I think you've seen him not be able to fully exert himself on that end because of the offensive load that he's taken on at BYU, which isn't unexpected. The guy is giving you nearly 26 points per game, 7 boards, and nearly 4 assists a night, with 8.5 free throw attempts per game, man, which is normally
insane.
Oftentimes, the defense's best strategy, just send a big man to the line. Like, it's unreal. If it was just like his downhill game and power and his finishing ability and his post scoring and footwork and inside the arc game, I think AJ makes a strong case still as the number 1 pick. But then you add his jump shooting ability this season. The guy is, and I don't think that the numbers do him justice, right? He's 33% from deep on 4 attempts a night, but the level of difficulty of some of the shots is remarkable. The guy is shot 36% out of pick and roll this season. Like, at the next level, I do look at AJ as a number 1 legitimately, and it's rare. It's just rare that you see this kind of skill from a wing prospect. He can finish with both of his hands. He can go score, I think, at all 4 levels. He can score on the block, and he's an incredible athlete too. And then, like I said, defensively, AJ's not a rim protector. He's not a straight up kind of center, but the guy is going to be more so in that roamer role where he can just wreak havoc on the back end. And I do think if you pair him up as a young prospect, if he's paired up with a guard or another initiator too, you could see him bring some value as a role man and as a decision maker in that area too. I think he's going to be really impactful not really impactful. I think he's going to be a monster in transition, scoring the basketball immediately in the open floor. He's a freak. He's a freak of nature. And I don't know. I don't know how this guy fails at the next level. I just don't get it. I think he is going to be a superstar offensively. And then, again, if you can take some of the offensive responsibility off of his plate, I think he's going to be a really high-level defender, too. He's got all the skill and talent in the world, and it's crazy. I don't know. I have rarely seen this kind of skill and power and strength and athleticism in a guy this size. So I just think he's a no-brainer to be the number 1 overall pick.
That's interesting. I don't know if it's a no-brainer, but I do think I'm really high on AJ because he is the best scorer I've ever evaluated as a prospect. I would say pretty confidently he's the best scoring wing prospect since Kevin Durant, and he's literally posted a historic stat line this year. You know how many freshmen have ever averaged 25 points and 3 assists a game on 60% true shooting, Logan? AJ Dybantsa. He's the first. By the way, let me shout out Cam Boozer, who also has a historic stat line. He's the first guy ever to average 22, 10, and 4 on 66% true shooting, period. So that's why I understand we're saying all these things about this guy's going to be one of the best at this, the best at that. Like, they're doing shit that has never been done before. These are truly insane talents. And Dybantsa is the one who blows me away the most. He has a completely unique ability to get wherever he wants on the basketball floor. And it's the driving that is just like so stupid with this guy. Like the pull-up shooting is insanely intriguing as well. But the fact that his footwork and stride length and balance just allows him to navigate, tight spaces and just get around people in a way that like you just don't see. He has some of the best feet I've ever seen, and with the combination of explosiveness and size that he has, like I've never seen a combination quite like that. He just euros around people so effortlessly, and the ability to decelerate and hit you with a slow step and then just lunge past you. Like, it's absolutely remarkable. He glides around people. He levitates around people. He is so shifty. He's so herky-jerky in a way that, again, you don't see from, like, these 6'9" guys who then also are so explosive with the first step, who are ridiculous jumpers. He's one of the best jumpers off 2 feet that I've ever seen. So, like, it feels like he can pretty much always get to the rim, even as teams pack the paint, even as, the offensive talent around him got pretty ugly this year. Once Richie Saunders got hurt for BYU, like, it was just him and Robert Wright, and teams knew that. And you watch how AJ was guarded in some of these games, and it's ridiculous how aggressive teams were with their coverages to him. And it's still like he's going to get to the rim a bunch. He's going to get to the line a bunch. He shoots 63% at the rim at huge volume and gets 8.5 free throws a game. Like, that number, man, is absolutely ridiculous for a college player. Like, he can easily be the best driver in the NBA someday because, again, I've never seen this combination of all of the traits that he has as a driver at this level. He could also easily be the very best transition scorer in the NBA. Like, he's on the short list of the scariest guys I've ever seen. All that shit that he can do in traffic gets that much easier when he's got a full runway and it's okay, now he's coming full head of steam downhill. He just has to euro around one guy. Like, it's over. He is going to get a dunk. And then you add on top of this insane downhill rim pressuring stuff, and I cannot overstate how unique that is. He is also this effortless pull-up shooter and probably the best mid-range prospect I've ever evaluated. In fact, like, he is. I can say that outright. Like, the footwork at his size, the number of counters that he has from the mid-range, absolutely absurd. He shoots over 47% on 2-point jumpers at massive volume, and he can just rise over top of anybody. He can cook you with pull-ups, but the turnarounds, like, he's one of the most efficient post scorers in college basketball this year.
It's incredible, too, the touch that he has on those shots, but it's like it just breaks a defense because when you're playing a guy like AJ, you're always going to drop off of him because you don't want to let him get to the rim. It's like you just can't do anything with that guy when he's spraying like that from the mid-range. Like, you're always going to play off, I don't want the guy to get to the rim. Okay, well, you're just going to concede a mid-range jumper, and he's great at that too.
No, literally. Like, the ways in which they do it are different, but the combination of foul drawing, rim pressure and finishing, and mid-range scoring game that he has, it's very like Shea-esque. And when you can dominate inside of 17 feet like that in all these different ways, people can't do shit to stop you other than force you to beat them as a passer, right? Throw crazy aggressive coverages at you, and that's going to be the next step for AJ, and that's probably what's going to determine how great this guy becomes. But he's got a strong runner game too. Like, he's just got it all going as a 2-point scorer. He is an absolutely absurd 2-point scoring talent. 57% on 13 2-point attempts a game with another 8.5 free throws a game. Like, man. And he's scoring a point per pick and roll. He's scoring over a point per ISO and post-up combined. Like, what he is doing as a self-creator, as a scorer at this sort of volume, in this sort of offensive situation, when the guy is just barely 19 years old, I've said it before, I'll say it again, he clearly has the potential to be the best scorer in the NBA. And not just the potential, if he doesn't win a scoring title, I will be underwhelmed by AJ Dybantsa's career. I've never said that about a basketball player before. That is the level of scoring talent we are talking about here. And then I do think the 3-point shot is something of a question, just because I do think like AJ is a more natural mid-range shooter. Specifically, he is one of those guys who sometimes kind of shoots lasers. And so just literally because of the arc of the ball, he is a better mid-range shooter than 3-point shooter. That being said, I think he's going to be a really good 3-point shooter. The question is just how good. And in some ways, I don't want to compare him to KD as a jump shooter, but it could be sort of KD-esque in the sense that like the pull-up 3 isn't going to be a volume weapon for him ever. Like, I'm not saying he's going to hit KD percentages, but I'm saying maybe he makes 37, 38% of 5, 6 3-point attempts a game. That seems reasonable for me to think. I don't see AJ becoming a guy who jacks up a ton of threes at the next level, and under no circumstances do I think he needs to be or should be that, because, again, he's the best 2-point scoring talent that I've ever seen as a prospect. Really, the question is going to be, how does he deal with double teams and physicality, and what level does he get to as a passer? Because those are the questions and the criticisms about AJ right now. Keeping turnovers down, specifically 3.1 turnovers a game this year, is a high number. Got the ball in his hands a lot. Really, really good handle for his size and age. But, I mean, when teams really ramp up the pressure, sometimes you can turn him around, and it's more so the decision-making. Like, I want to be clear. I think that AJ's passing development is encouraging considering where he's at. Like, he is raw as a passer, but it is still so rare for a scoring wing like him to even be averaging close to 4 assists a game at this stage in his development. Like, even if it is just mostly the basic reads, he clearly got better at it as the year went along. And if you compare him to like Kevin Durant, right? KD's averaging like an assist a game as a college freshman. Like, this is the last part of the development that comes together for these guys. AJ's on a good trajectory, but also like it's just going to be a challenge for him. You watch him playing against Texas, for example. You watch him playing against Houston in another recent game. And I mean, these are really good defensive, really athletic teams, but their game plan is all about, all right, we're going to throw multiple bodies at AJ for pretty much the entire game. And his instinct is still, okay, how do I score against the double? And sometimes even when he wants to be selfless, like the accuracy and the timing as a passer just isn't there yet. Like that Texas game, he winds up with only 1 assist against 5 turnovers. He still got 35 points because he's a fucking freak as a scorer. But it's like, okay, yeah, his teammates missed a couple shots they should have made. But also there are certain spots where like AJ just doesn't get the ball to his teammates in their spots because, again, the passing, processing, accuracy, timing, all of it is not where it needs to be. So that's going to be the thing. And then court mapping, I think just overall awareness of where his teammates are at. Like a lot of this sort of spatial processing stuff as a passer is what he's going to have to figure out. But it's just going to happen, like I think. I'm not saying he's ever going to be a very good passer, but again, let me make this about Shea for a moment. Like, you may not be a natural playmaker, but when every defense in the NBA starts gimmicking their scheme up and they start running multiple bodies at you over and over again, and they're always trying to make you play in a crowd, like necessity is going to dictate that you become a better passer. And the reads that defenses are going to force you to make really aren't that hard because they're that terrified of you as a scorer. So this is the knock on AJ at 19. Is it going to be a thing we worry about at all when he's 25 and he's scoring 30 a game on 64% true shooting? Like, I think he's going to get to be good enough as a passer to be one of the very best offensive players in the NBA because the scoring value is just that monumental. And then defensively, I really don't know what he's going to turn into. I mean, obviously, he's got the tools to like be good switching defender, good sort of, as you were saying, roamer, secondary rim protector. We'll see if he cares enough. I mean, I don't want to say this is a guy who's ever going to be like a high impact defender. I don't really see that with his offensive load and what we've seen up to this point. But also, like, there were people who wanted to make it out like, oh, this guy just doesn't care. AJ Dybantsa he's not a competitor. He just wants to get out there and score. And I don't think that's true if you've watched him. Like, I do think he gives enough defensive effort to believe he is going to be totally solid on that end. And again, has the tools to be a plus. But I wouldn't necessarily expect that. I wouldn't necessarily expect it for Peterson either. I think both guys are just like sure things because of their athleticism and size to be solid defensively. And then absolute freak unicorn sort of offensive upside, and even a little bit more so in AJ's case, because that downhill plus pull-up shooting combination that he has, never seen it from a player at this age.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, I think he's so far ahead of development in terms of his playmaking, and like, because of how physically imposing and strong he is, he's going to have to. Like, defenses are going to have to divert, even at the next level in the NBA, more defensive attention to him in the lane to force him out. I'm excited to see what he's going to look like in the NBA, man.
Yeah.
And what team he goes to, what kind of offensive role he's cast in. I can't wait, man. I think he's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you bring up the strength because it's certainly not the first thing you think of with Dybantsa, but he's got that wiry strength. Like, he's just so physical and he's so aggressive. And that is rewarded, man. That leads to good stuff. Like,
it does.
There are so many dudes who could be as skilled as him, and they just fall in love with the pull-up jumper. How many dudes have we seen who are like talented scoring wings in recent year, but they're all about just the mid-range, the pull-up shooting game, whatever. Like, AJ is better in terms of the mid-range than any prospect I've seen, while being this absolute freak, hyper-aggressive, masterful downhill driver. And like, the control that he has on drives, the ability to manipulate pace, like how consciously he's thinking about these attacks. Like, it's just so crazy. I'm completely blown away by him as a scorer, truly. So AJ Dybantsa, number one prospect in this draft for both of us. Real quick, Logan, is there anybody else you want to shout out who we didn't get a chance to talk about today? Anybody who you're just like, I didn't have a spot in my top 10, but I really like that guy?
A couple of guys real quick. I mean, you mentioned Phylon earlier. That guy's got a special handle and some really nice wiggle to his game, man. I mean, I really struggle outside of archetype to find an issue with his game. I mean, I don't think he's a really high-level athlete, I'd say, in terms of explosiveness, strength, and verticality.
Yeah.
And I just see him being a defensive liability, but the guy is shooting 67% at the rim, 48% on floaters, 41% on catch and shoot threes, 34% on off the dribble threes. I think there's a real strong argument that he's got the best handle in the draft. Really good change of pace. And I think, a component of it is the fact that he's not a freshman. I think the fact that he's a sophomore, I don't think people are talking about him as much, but he's got a really nice handle. And, He was tough to leave out of the top 10.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he was my toughest cut. And yeah, he's a sophomore, but he's only going to be 20.6 years old on draft night. So I was thinking about him versus Mikael Brown, and Brown was the more hyped up prospect, but I just like Phylon a little bit more. I think the shooting with him is so reliably elite. I like him even more as a passer. I think the turnover suppression with him is a lot better, where I kind of worry about turnovers a little bit with Brown, and just a more efficient offensive player overall. I think the argument for Brown would be a little bit quicker and a little bit better in terms of scoring on an island, and I do think that's sort of the concern with Phylon, and that's why I left him off. We just really haven't seen much from him as an isolation scorer, and so I do think he's very screen reliant offensively, but I think he could be like one of the better pick and roll players in the NBA. I mean, he gives you 22, 3, and 5 on 60% true shooting. He's a 90th percentile pick and roll creator at massive volume. And you mentioned the finishing, the elite runner game, the elite three-point shooting. He's a really good passer, like throws ropes, live dribble, ambidextrous passer, really, really good and selfless. There's just a lot of scoring and playmaking stuff that I love there. And he was efficient. And yes, he's had the ball a lot, but like when he has been off ball as a spot up guy, he's been an excellent shooter. I really wanted to have him here. I really did. Ultimately, though, I do think, again, I worry about the screen reliance. And then defensively, right, he's 6'4", so the size is decent, but he's got to get stronger. I think that matters offensively, too. And he's a bad screen navigator, and I just think defense with him is going to be an uphill battle. It's not going to be so bad that, like, I can't see him becoming a star, because I definitely can. Again, it just came down to sort of the likelihood of outcomes, and there were guys whose impact I was more confident in. And Brown, I think, is another good shout who is in most people's top 10 and has, like, an ability to generate massive self-created volume from beyond the arc, gets to the line a lot, shifty, good passer. But between the two, like, I liked Phylon a little bit more if I was going to consider them. And other than that, nobody who I really lost sleep over. Jaden Quaintance, ASU legend, shout out. Just haven't seen enough. I think there's enough questions and enough rawness there coming off of the torn ACL where I wouldn't have him. So shout out to all those guys. I know a lot of people like Nate Ament. Not really for me. I've got some concerns about finishing and decision-making and overall offensive efficiency. And I don't know. I just think he's talented, but there's a lot that could go wrong with him as a player. So there you have it, folks. A little draft talk. Light 2 hours, Logan. Can we do a podcast in under 2 hours? Signs point to no. Signs really point to no. We appreciate you guys. We hope you've been enjoying the college basketball. Of course, we will be back talking NBA this Wednesday. If you missed our Top 30 Players series, where we ranked all of the top 30 guys in the NBA, you can go ahead and check out all of those episodes on our YouTube channel and across all audio platforms, where you can find all of our full episodes and our video essay, video breakdown content that we do. You can also follow us across social, of course, TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, and Twitter at nerd_sesh to see all of our daily viral content there. And, of course, you can listen to the pod wherever you get your audio content. So, with that, as always, we appreciate you guys oh so much. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.